Trevor, but I think we did that in the email. Trevor started here in fall 2008, and I will never forget Trevor visiting the program the first time. He was down here working for Raytheon, and was preparing for the Florida Ironman, and then somehow through this process decided to come to the University of Florida, and I sat down with him. I remember his first question was talking about orientation, because he was fully committed to going to the Olympics in China before the program started, and so we were trying to figure out making sure that he was able to get back in time. I was blown away by somebody who was willing to just like take off and go to China for the Olympics. At that time, even our really hadn't traveled that much out of the United States at that time, while the immersion program hadn't even really started. And so it was just amazing to me that somebody would like pick up and just go to and that was a trend that continued with Trevor for at least the 2 years that he was here. You know, he went and studied abroad at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and then wanted to start his first job after the MBA in China. And I remember the first time we went to China in 2009, Trevor was in China, and I jokingly sent him an email because he was in Hong Kong at the time, and I'm like, hey, we're going to be in Shanghai, you should come visit everybody. And he's like, Carrie, you know, it's really not close. I'm like, okay, I was really kidding, but that's fine. And then I walk into I'm standing in the elevator in Shanghai, and I'm going down, and the elevator doors open, and watch Trevor. And I'm like, what are you doing here in Shanghai? But, you know, that's very typical, and that's just something I think travel and following, you know, where the world is has been something that Trevor's always been about. And it's been a lot of fun following his journey the past 5 years. And I think it's great that he's here for a short period of time to talk to you guys about what he's done, and also tell you a little bit about his area of expertise, or growing expertise. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor.
It's a very glowing introduction. Thank you very much. Especially kind of probably after I left the MBA program for the first 2 years, I didn't do very much to help the rankings. Working as an entrepreneur without really a salary and all that, so I'm glad they invited me back to share with you all today.
Notice that Jason's not here.
I think the statute of limitations is passed, so it's gotten out of it now. Does anyone know what the picture is? I know you. Anybody else? Any guesses? No. It's actually Mars. Is a joke from when I was going to school here. Everyone thought I was from a different planet. It was a little bit of a weird thing, but that was Mars. That's in Jordan. That's Wadi Rum, which is where they filmed the Martian movie. So anyway, it was a beautiful place one day for me to sit down and do a little bit of meditation. And meditation is just one of the many things that I've kind of got myself into over these past 5 years. And when I talk about meditation, when I teach meditation, I like to do it in a way where I talk about really exploring something that's very cool, that's not boring. Lots of people hear meditation and you think it's a really boring concept. I gotta sit and do nothing. And so hopefully my goal today is to open you up to the idea that it can be a little bit more than that. Anyone can keep coming in, they're looking at the doors, come on in. What we're going to get into today is a quick way at this. I haven't given a presentation in a long time, so bear with me, I'm a little choppy. I'm going to do a fair amount of talking. You guys are going to do some things, and then we're going to do a bunch of collaboration, a lot of Q&A. You can kind of ask in any direction if there's anything that fascinates you about this presentation. There'll be a little bit about the traveling, a little bit about the story, but also a lot about the yoga, a lot about the meditation. Basically, I've been a yoga instructor now for the last 5 years. I'll tell you how I got into that. And before we go any further, I'm going to actually kind of start today's show with a little bit of yoga with all of you. Get me in my zone. And so I'm just going to give you 5 minutes of putting the food down. I got a little photo here. This is the, put your phones away, put your computers away, put your food to the side.
And for a fun fact, that's in 202.
What's that?
That's in Hub 202?
Yeah, there's a lot more photos coming up. Top pop all over the place. And I want you all to stand up for me. And just humor me for a little bit while we get out of our distractedness and kind of into a little bit of our bodies, into ourselves. And you guys, if you'd like, you can actually sort of flood into the central aisle here and just give yourself some room so you're not immediately like a bump into the person next to you. We're not going to do anything crazy. I just like to move a little bit and slow things down rather than getting out of our routine for the day. So I did take these photos about 4 years ago, thinking that I was going to be able to use them as this big like corporate yoga business thing. I actually took a lot of these photos here in the hall. I never got to show them to anybody until today. So I'm glad that we had that opportunity. So we're not going to do that. But just some easy stuff just to get into our body. So I want you all to give yourself a stance that's a little bit wider than hip distance. Standing pose. Your feet are hip distance. Your arms are relaxed. Close your eyes. Breathing in and out through your nose. And just notice in 5 minutes, you've probably been taken to a little bit of a different space than where you were 5 minutes ago. Nothing big. We do a yoga class, it's an hour, hour and a half. But 5 minutes of pushing aside your distractions and really drawing deep into your own feelings can have a very powerful effect on the clarity of your mind and your ability to move forward in your day-to-day activities. That's all I really wanted to do is an opening exercise. So y'all can open your eyes again and try to keep this momentum of clarity in your minds as you cruise back to your seats. And if you want to keep eating, you're welcome to, but maybe it feels better to put the food up to the edge and savor it a little bit more when the presentation is over. It's your choice. I'm not going to be upset with you either way, but I would like you to try to keep your phones and computers out of your distraction zone. It's a hugely hypocritical thing for me to say, because I certainly always had my computer out, my phone out when I was going to school, but hopefully for this mindfulness presentation it makes sense. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit about my story. Where's my clicker? Over. So as Kara said, China. I moved to China. I love China. China. Well, as you can see from that picture, I thought I loved China, but I got into a bad place in China, and it started on a really great note. When I graduated from the MBA program, my good friend John, who actually came here to Gainesville and did his own speech at the Entrepreneurial Center, I moved to Shenzhen, China, right across from Hong Kong, and I started working with him on a really cool startup company creating fantasy sports in China. And I was a big sports guy, and I mean, we went to all-star games, worked with the NBA, we had to go courtside at Madison Square Garden. I was going to conventions in Vegas and representing this company. We were having all sorts of meetings with ESPN. It was really high opportunity. I knew the company was going to be very successful, but when I moved there, it became a lot different than I had anticipated. And the company just simply wasn't really ready to get global just yet. It was good in China, and I didn't speak Chinese. And I was having a lot of trouble in the office every single day trying to actually add value. I had a contract, and on the contract that I knew if I stuck around for 6 months, I would vest whatever it was, 1/2 of my vesting or 1/4 of it. I don't remember the details, that's long gone. But the point is that this company now, I knew it was going to be successful, it has become successful, but after 3 months I couldn't take it anymore. My health was suffering, I was very lost. I was going into a much more of a dark place than when I first arrived in China. And so my relationship with John was struggling, and I decided at that point in time it just really wasn't worth the day-to-day drama, and I stepped away amicably, and I'm still very good friends with John to this day. He's actually done quite well for himself, but it was very challenging because I was leaving something that was kind of good to go to something that was completely unknown. And I tried to salvage my China experience. I went up to Shanghai. That wasn't the time I met with Kara. I might have met her again. She might have come back a second time.
I did.
Did I see you then?
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been in a much darker place when I saw Kara the second time. But I was, able to get a lot of job interviews. I had good at networking, and I was good at partying, and I was really good at just meeting people and doing things. You know, but that doesn't really, how does that help you get a job? You're good at doing things. I would go to these interviews, and that was the question that I would get. What do you want to do? And my answer was, well, I've done A. I've went to UCLA, computer science, worked as a software engineer at Raytheon, got my MBA, and an A, and a B, and C, so I should probably be doing B. I was finding that I was completely lost, and I was defining myself on my past rather than actually understanding what I wanted to do in that present moment. I was kind of kept twirling deeper and deeper and deeper. I was getting jobs. I was doing odd jobs, working as, the white guy. That's kind of what you do in China. You work at a convention center in a suit and you can get paid for it. I was teaching, English to 3-year-olds. I had some real, existential moments right there. But I'll tell you, I loved teaching English to those 3-year-olds. There was something about it that gave me a little bit of peace of mind that I was contributing to something neat, and I like that. And the teaching was actually one of these things that gave me a bit of peace in my life. But then I would go out and party all night, and then I was like getting worse and worse and worse. There were some bad nights, and eventually I realized that I needed to do something a little bit more about it. I needed to change my ways, and so I actually started going to yoga. And I had gone to yoga before, but all I was able to afford in China was just like one 90-minute session of a yoga class. And I don't care about the flexibility and the strength, all that good stuff. That's all great. But what I noticed is that in that short amount of time, I was so changed. My mind was completely opposite from the rest of my week. It was such a therapeutic thing because I could put aside all of my distractions and be completely in the moment, feeling good about myself. And so I kind of reached this point, one shining moment, a nice little March Madness pun for today, but I was enough of a shining moment to say, I need to get out of China, and I need to go do something a little more positive. And so that's when I had to figure out how to do that when I was completely broke, and I was out of money. And it was a big decision, but I actually ended up deciding to go to India for 3 months with the following strategy. 200.5K for freedom is not an endurance running event, but that's what happens when you take out half of your 401k before it's time to actually vest. So I was 28 when I did that, and I was looking at the clock, and I was like, I will be 65 when I get this money, and I don't know what 37 years is. So I took the bullet, and I took out the money, and I was able to pay to go to India, and I spent 3 months in the Himalayas. This is a picture with a book from the one right on the banks of the Ganga River in Rishikesh, and it says How to Become Rich. And it's not like a metaphorical book about becoming rich mentally. It's actually a book about, hey, a lot of people are looking for this thing called, mindfulness, liberation, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. But they got to figure out a way to start to learn that, and they got to have money to buy a plane ticket to get to India to actually be able to afford to start this journey on their own. Luckily, nowadays, that message has been proliferated around the world, but it was a fun book that kind of hit the nail on the head that you need to have money at one point to start your journey into this world of bettering yourself. I spent 3 months in the mountains, did a yoga teacher training, did a big Himalaya trek. It was a real big opportunity to kind of go within and be able to push aside all that negativity that I had for the year that I spent in China. One of the biggest things that I really stuck with me was this kind of idea of selfishness versus selflessness. I loved giving, I loved teaching, I loved helping. Even when I was here in Florida, and I was, there was a lot of people running and doing Ironmans and whatever, and I loved coaching them. It was like my favorite thing to do was to give people ideas of how to make themselves a little better. But I couldn't do that unless I took care of myself first. And so that was what this whole trip really to India was about. It was self-practice, improving what I was capable of doing, and then giving that to others, recycling it over and over and over again. And so suddenly I had this toolbox, a healthy toolbox, a tool set that I could go and I could share with people. The yoga just made so much sense to me. It was going back to that previous thing, what do you want to do? This is what I wanted to do. It was clear, I didn't know how I was going to do it, starting all over at ground zero. And so I ended up actually coming back to Florida in 2011, got my diploma on the way back, I remember that, and did another Ironman in Kentucky on the way. It was a funny story, but the point is in the last 5 years, a lot can happen. And I'm not going to go over all of it, but I will show some highlights. 6 months after I left China, in one of the darkest places in my life, I was teaching yoga to the Tampa Bay Buccaneer cheerleading team in Tampa. So that was pretty cool at that point in time in my life. I was very proud of that. A year later, I met a girlfriend, Amanda, and we became acro yoga instructors, and we started teaching acrobatic yoga all over the world. We moved to Australia for a year, spent a year there with kangaroos doing acro yoga, as you can see. We went back 2 separate times to the Himalayas and led treks with large groups on 2-week retreats, teaching yoga and meditation in the mountains. And then most recently in New Zealand, after we lived there for a year, in our final yoga class that we taught in New Zealand, we got engaged. And it was a very fun whirlwind trip to have just met a girl and gone 3 years around the world and somehow survived and actually like each other. And she's right there in the back. She came today. So give her a round of applause. Thank you for coming. And that brings us kind of here to today. So I need to figure out what's the next slide, because I have 2 different machines going on right now. Yeah, so we're going to start moving into, that's my kind of background. Now we're going to shift towards what have I learned and what are we doing with mindfulness today? What are we trying to get across? How do we make it exciting and worthwhile? And I wanted to put 2 disclaimers up, because I think these are very important. I think they're very dangerous in when you go to a mindfulness talk or a yoga talk or a spirituality talk or anything about even a dietitian, nutrition, anything that comes about bettering yourself, there's always a risk for 2 things going on. And this is what Kara was joking about. This says officially qualified in absolutely nothing. Okay? I don't have any amazing qualifications. There could very well be people here in this room who are studied as, you majored in psychology or neuroscience or something, and you are way more intelligent than I will ever be on these subjects. I do the best I can with what I've learned and have experienced, and hopefully I can interpret it and give it to you in a very digestible way that makes sense. But I am not speaking as this amazing person who only tells the 100% scientific fact. I don't have those. The other thing is the dogma, and this is what gets a lot of us in trouble, is even if I don't have the facts, clearly we see this quite often in our current political situation, people still talk as though they have the facts and that this is the only way to go about it. The thing is there's so many different approaches to yoga, there's so many different approaches to mindfulness, and honestly, they're all valid. They're all valid, and if we speak tonight and I say something that might trigger you in a way, or it might be like, I've done it differently, then let me know. I want to keep that dialogue open. I really don't want to pretend like I'm the one who knows it all and that it's the right way for you. Everyone is very unique here. And so I just want to keep that, this is the no spin zone of my presentation today. All right, so that's the little warm up for me. And then coming after the disclaimers is a little bit of an introduction to what I call a very, very, very complex universe of yoga. Have any of you done like yoga classes? Anybody here? Like happy, most of you. You done tell me, just spit out some styles of yoga. Anything, just scream it out. Yin yoga, vinyasa yoga, Bikram, sure.
Recovery.
What's that one? Hatha, recovery. Cool. So you guys have a little bit of a dabble, a little platter of yoga flavors, right? More of that later. The thing is that these are all very, very modern spins on yoga. When you really start trying to research the history, the origins of it, I mean, it's just a wild, wild west of crazy esoteric concepts of, gods here and there and enlightened things and sages and trying to create this idea of self-human in, being connected with something greater, mysterious, magical. It's pretty out there, and it's hard for us today and in our modern environment to really buy into that. Some people do, and some, you might go to the Himalayas and meet some dude in a cave who's going to be all about that, and you can respect that because he's on a totally different journey than we are. But for us, we don't even really know the history, because all of the stuff we know about ancient India was probably translated into English less than 200 years ago, and it's really up for debate exactly how accurate those translations were. And we give certain people credit for being great philosophers. There's Patanjali and Shankaracharya and different people who were along the path who kind of consolidated a lot of different things and packaged them, repackaged them, and kind of created what it got revived in the 1900s through some really, really charismatic Indian men who created this movement, calisthenic practice, and then mindfulness, combined it, body, mind, blah, 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 took it to the West. And in the last 20 years, Vinyasa, Yin, and Ashtanga, blah, 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 all these power, Bikram, it's taken off like wildfire, right? So Lululemon, online yoga, it's everywhere, and it's kind of neat because it's mostly positive. I certainly take advantage of it. That's how we're able to travel and do these treks and retreats and blah, blah, blah. But the problem is that it can become a little less like what it maybe originally was intended to be, this practice of real deep spirituality, and now it's into meditation in caves looking more like this woman rather than that gentleman up above. So that's kind of the world that we're living in right now. And this is another one of my favorites. This is a woman from Los Angeles, and her whole thing is she's like, take the spirituality out of yoga, the no Om zone. And so we're trying to figure out what is it that we're looking for through the world of yoga. A lot of people are very unsure. It's being convoluted more and more and more every day. But one thing that we do tend to mostly agree upon is that when it comes to the mind, we all want to have less distractions, right? And so we live in such a complex world that's always bothering us with so many things. And life is hard, it's natural, we all have to do it. It's impossible unless you're, again, that dude living in the cave in the Himalayas, not the girl. If you're him, maybe then you don't have any worldly things you have to be reliable upon or reliable for. And you can actually be the dog in this picture. This is like the first Google image search when you search mindfulness. But it's quite clear that this is this human being with let's say adult human being with a busy brain, always being distracted with everything. And this is, I don't have any worries in the world. I'm here, I'm now, I'm mindful. We'll break that down in a second. But basically, in general, it feels good to be focused. You all know that. We all can agree on that. It's pretty much a universal idea that the less your mind is stressed out and distracted, it feels pretty nice. But unless you practice that often, maybe you only get it in bits and pieces. I used to always say, YOLO, you only live once, but I've changed that now to the YOM. It's not, doesn't sound quite as sexy, but it's, you only live now. And that's, again, it's very clear. You'll hear that in all the little new age quotes about living in the moment, but they're pretty accurate. Maybe they're a little hippie here and there, but they're pretty accurate. The other two real big things that we often hear about when it comes to the practice of steadying the mind is realizing the impermanence of everything. I mean, it's very easy to realize the only real constant we have is change. If you're in a really dark place, that will pass and become something different. If you were in a really great place, some tragedy might happen, some misery might happen, and you can go in the opposite way. So we're always kind of flowing on the ebbs and flows of time, and our goal is, with all of that impermanence, is to remain equanimous when things come. That's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. And so I'm going to try and maybe take us a little bit down the path of how to get there. It doesn't need to be just yoga, traditional looking yoga, to be a mindful exercise. We can achieve mindfulness through reading books, through listening to music, through snowboarding, through riding bikes, whatever it is that brings your mind into like a temporary, amazingly focused moment where those distractions are pushed aside is pretty cool. I highly recommend anything in your life that brings you into that zone, right? The thing is it's kind of only temporary, because you get that high, the runner's high, but then it's gone a little bit later and you're back into your shit zone, right? So you kind of have these great moments. It's like a taster, but if you do it enough, it becomes a gateway drug. And you're like, I need that so much. That's what happened to me in China. I needed it so much that I chose to immerse myself in it and see where it would take me, where I could go with that. And the next slide is, I'm kind of tried to prepare this in a really neat way. Yes, got it. Is to define mindfulness. You read that. The practice of maintaining a non-judgmental state of heightened or complete awareness of one's thoughts, emotions, or experiences on a moment-to-moment basis. So mindfulness is kind of the experience that you get once you've got control of this crazy, mad machine inside of you. We experience like momentary bouts of mindfulness when we have these neat experiences, but they're temporary. And so the goal there would be to make this a little bit more of a permanent thing. And the problem with that is it's really hard work. Another picture I took this. Oh my God, I'm stressed out, but I can't figure it out. So we have to go a little bit deeper. Karma and Hinduism, there's a little overlap, too complex to get into today. But the idea is that this is stuff that you don't necessarily have control over. This is stuff you're kind of born with in one way, shape, or form. Maybe some of them started in this lifetime. Maybe because you were a baby and you had a certain experience in your life, you were able to then have this deep-seated subconscious that you had to somehow work through and overcome. In modern day science, we psychologists have studied this, and they have tell you that there's traumas you get when you're young, and that'll clearly affect who you are when you grow up. And how do we actually get through that? Temperament is a natural thing that you're born with, so in LL advanced based upon your life experiences. And so whatever way you want to look at it, how do you approach it? How do you unwire and do this subconscious surgery so that you can become a little bit more mindful all the time? Is they both recommend some way, some shape of meditation. And it's different teachers, whether it's a psychiatrist giving you a consultation, or whether it's a guru having you in a yoga class, or a meditation 10-day retreat. It doesn't, you can go to any degree of it, any level of it, but the point is that we are now onto this new word that I haven't really talked about too much, called meditation. And I like to think that meditation is a much more specific approach to training your mind to always try its best to be mindful. And meditation comes, again, just like yoga, in many different shapes and sizes. And they're all worth exploring. No dogma here. One may or may not work for you. But I'm going to give you now, back to the exercise portion of the class, I'm going to give you two separate 3 to 5 minute meditation experiences, so you can again be a participant here and see how it goes. So the first one we're going to play with is what I'm going to call guided visualization. Some people call it guided imagery. Basically, I'm going to walk you through a little story. And so before I start that, I'm going to just make sure that you're seated in a nice way that's going to allow you to really enjoy this without being distracted by anything around you. So maybe resituate yourself in your chair, lean back, sit upright, feel that there's a clarity from your tailbone all the way up through your skull. Find a comfortable place for your shoulders. Maybe they're on the armrest, maybe they're not. Just become mindful of how you're sitting and make sure that maybe even where your feet are they ankles crossed or the feet want to be flat on the ground? How can you make yourself the most comfortable so you don't have to move or fidget for the next 5 minutes? All right, now once you've got into that space, close down your eyes again. I'd like you to breathe in and out slowly through your nose. And just relax the shoulders. And if your mind does start to become distracted or wandering around, it's fine, it's normal. But just become aware of that and try to bring it back to this story I'm going to walk you. So begin now. by visualizing yourself on a beautiful, pristine beach. It's a pleasant sunny day, yet not too hot, with a light breeze. You feel the warm sun warming and energizing your skin. You hear the waves gently tapping on the sand. You allow yourself to be at one with nature. You are completely alone on the beach and feel completely safe. You reach down and take your shoes and socks off and place them on a towel on the sand. The grains of sand feel warm and energizing on your feet as you walk along the sand. You hear the faint sound of seagulls in the air, which adds to the tranquility. You begin walking towards the water and walk along the shore where the water meets the sand. The sand feels soft and cool from the water as you walk along. The air is fresh and clean. You allow any tension in your body to melt away as you walk along the sand. All cares and worries of your day are gradually melting away. You take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. Again, taking another deep breath in and exhale gently. Feel the elements and life force from nature, restoring your energy levels and sense of calm. Visualize in your mind any place you may be holding tension in your body, any aches or pains, gradually softening and releasing. As the water ebbs and flows on the shore, so do all your worries and tiredness ebb and flow away. You are feeling completely serene and at peace at the beach. As a wave comes to shore, you look down and see a bottle by your feet. You reach down and pick up the bottle. As you hold the bottle in your hand, you notice the bottle has been sealed with a cork, and there's a note inside the bottle. You loosen the cork and reach in with your fingers to pull out the piece of paper. You unfold the paper and read the words. If you are reading these words, know that you are receiving this message at the right time and place. Know that you are special and loved eternally. I have chosen you to be here at this time and place to help the people and planet heal. Never doubt or forget how special you are. Signed, my eternal love, the Great Spirit. Overjoyed with emotion, you feel someone else should also discover this bottle. You fold the note and place it back into the bottle. You reseal the bottle with the cork, and with your best throw, you throw the bottle back into the water past all the waves. It is now time to leave this meditation. When you feel ready, gently bring your awareness back to your body in the room. You can give your fingers and toes a wiggle. And when you feel ready, gently open your eyes, coming back to waking consciousness. just repeat this. Make yourself comfortable again. This one's not going to be me telling you what to do and making you visualize. It's going to be you're your own autonomous boss this time. Close down your eyes again. Sort of imagine your body like it's underneath an infrared sensor. Have your fingers and your toes. Be far away from your brain. You can kind of sense where they are in space. And as you breathe in and out through your nose, maybe feel just the slightest little whisper on your upper lip underneath your nose. Feel that breath going up through your nostrils into your sinuses, down through your windpipe, into your lungs. Every breath is a simple way of fueling that infrared system. The lungs, then, they appreciate that new energy, that outside air that fuels us. It's converted immaculately. This divine body of balance into the bloodstream. Blood takes this fresh new oxygen. The heart takes in this oxygenated blood and it pumps it all the way up through every limb. Down the arms, down the legs, up into the brain. Fueling every single cell in your body. After all of your organs, all your muscles, all of your bones, ligaments, tendons, everything gets its fuel. And blood takes this used carbon dioxide, sends it back to the heart. And again, immaculately converts it back into your lungs. And sends it out on your exhale. Back to the universe. Back to the plants. And so as you kind of follow this cycle, I'm going to just stop talking for a minute. I want you to just go on a little journey and notice if any interesting sensations pop up down the arms, down the legs, in the throat, in the tongue, in the teeth, in the jaw, anywhere. Just enjoy a minute of pure body sensing. See how it goes. Take a little bit of notice of how both of those experiences went for you. Did you catch your mind constantly wanting to wander off into daydreaming-like directions? When I meditate, yes, that always happens. I imagine it probably happened for a lot of people. But these are just two very simple ways, slightly different ways, that you can start to harness all of this wildness and bring it back into more of a sense of focus all the time. So like I said, the yoga, the reading, the music, the running, the snowboarding, that's a trick. That tricks your mind into being still and focused and happy and blissful. This is a lot harder, but you can actually make it pretty pretty neat. When you consider the divinity of your body going on inside, that might be the style that you really are drawn to, but can also be really creative if you're visualizing, whether it's my story that I told you, or your own story, where you're walking through your own planet, whatever you want to call it. Many, many, many paths. But this is the work that when you practice it over and over and over again, you start to probably see things in your life becoming a little more mindful, a little more peaceful. And there's so many studies out there. So many studies, some done by universities, others done by quacks, I don't know, but they're out there, of what actually, happens when you practice meditation constantly. And they're all giving amazing results. However, this is kind of a usual final statement that's made, is that they clearly offer health benefits, but we don't really know exactly why. We can't, as scientists, truly prove neuroscience, firing here, that, and the other. And so what it does is it kind of forces you to shift from the purely explainable physical realm to something a little more metaphysical. And that's where you have to decide, are you willing to try that? That idea that maybe there is this idea that the matrix of wellness can't really be explained perfectly. But you experience it. You, at the end of the day, are the only one that really knows what's going on inside your mind and your body. You know how you feel. It's true to you, not anybody else. No one else can tell you how you feel. You can try. Some people can claim they can. Maybe there's a little bit of truth to it, but you're the boss. You're the ultimate decider, and you have the ability to change this. And so I kind of finished with this. All of this will always be up for debate. It is so incredibly personal and unique to you, and I find it incredibly fascinating to go down these wormholes and see what's really possible when it comes to analyzing this original frontier of myself versus being distracted by everything else around me. So, thank you all very much for listening so patiently and for being so focused and not eating all of your food. That's what I got from my presentation. I hope that I've stimulated you all in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there's something that you all might want to share. I'm saying y'all now, I'm back in Florida. Maybe along the way, on this little meditation attempt, you might have come up with something. I mean, you can make this open forum. Anything anyone may have experienced is totally valid. Q&A, discussion, go for it. We got how much more time? Did I tell that I take like the whole section? You can stay as long as you want. I'm in no rush to get out of here. Yes, I have Danny over there snuck in while I was talking. Anybody, any questions, anything you want to bring up? Yes.
Do you find that someone usually needs like a restart button where they have to like be somewhere, they have to remove themselves out of environments to really be able to start something like this? Or have you seen it work in different scenarios?
I need it. I know for me, I need the immersion. It's a very good question. It's like people who are full-time MBAs versus people who are part-time MBAs. It's like, do you need to fully immerse yourself in that thing to actually study and be there and progress, or can you balance yourself out? I think that different people's minds are wired differently, and some may be able to do a dedicated weekly, I am always going to take Saturday off, or I'm always going to take these 2 hours on Tuesday, and I'm going to focus 100%. So, it's very personal, but I can clearly say that taking an immersion is not for everyone either. There's some people, they get there one day and they freak out and they're gone because it's too much. It can be dangerous if you have a lot of deep-seated traumas to go into an environment like this and suddenly it all comes up immediately and it can be really intense. So it's important that if you are going to immerse, that you do it with a teacher who's very capable and experienced, not just some, again, do your research as who might guide you along this way. But again, you don't have to go fly to India like I did. You can go watch YouTube videos for free in your own home for an hour every day and convert that usual distraction into something positive. So, yeah, very personal, but I like to get out of town.
I just have something to share. So, some people I absolutely adore is a guy called Anya Shanti, who's a Buddhist teacher. teacher who lives in San Francisco, he's sort of like a Buddhist by teaching. But one of the things he talks about when he talks about meditation is, I can take you a minute, 20 minutes, however long, but you sort of reach this place where probably a lot of people out there just are guided meditation meditate, where everything is complete. And he calls that, the term doesn't really matter, he calls that the small, simple life. But what he says about meditation is, once you reach that place, stop and ask yourself, was that small, simple quiet not already there before I started meditating? And so for me, that sort of, I think meditation certainly helps me access that place and remember what it feels like. But when I get caught up in the middle of the day, I don't have 10 minutes to take out and do something, I can just ask myself that question, is that small, simple quiet not already there? Is it not already somewhere within me? And just asking that question alone sort of brings back a lot more clarity.
Thank you for sharing that. That's again, yeah, the deepest, and like I said, there's the whole complex way of explaining yoga, and that's one of them, is that the idea of enlightenment is that you already have it. It's just kind of dark, and somebody's come in to help shine the light on it, but it's already there, it's already yours. And it's going to be kind of a new agey thing, but it's true, we're born as a baby, you don't have all of these crazy concerns, it's there, you're blissful, you're present, you look at pets, you look at animals, it's our crazy monkey mind that gets in the way of what you already know and have. So if it can be something like that that really works for you, that you can lock into. It took me a month of being in an ashram in India to really buy into that, but if you found a way to get it in your own life through whatever mechanism, that's fantastic, and that's, thank you for sharing. Yes, sir.
So I've done a lot of like body sensing meditation, what we did the second time. I've always kind of wondered, is there like a next step? Is there something more you can do after? Because like I'm very efficient at clearing everything out, but then what?
It's actually, that's a funny question, because I used to feel the same way when I first started doing yoga. When I was kind of new to it, I could see such a huge difference between my busyness and my clarity, and it was dramatic, and I love getting into the body. It's a shavasana sensation of sensing the body and relaxing, and again, whatever it is, it can be very different per person. As I did more and more and more and more, I got less and less and less of an obvious feeling. It actually became more challenging to notice a difference because I was a little bit more shifting in the spectrum to being more relaxed in general. Until just a month ago, Amanda and I went to a 10-day full-on Vipassana meditation. Have any of you heard about these 10-day silent meditations? Maybe a couple of you? Yeah. So that is what I've heard of entire year-long silent meditation retreats. There's crazy stuff out there. I'm not telling anyone to do that. But these 10-day things, I cannot vouch any higher for them. It's a technique that, as far as what they explain in history, it started with the idea that it was in Buddhism. The Buddha was the one who taught this technique, and everyone was practicing it through India, but then different governments came and people came and killed a lot of people, and it kind of disappeared, and then it survived in Burma, in Myanmar, and a couple monks in Myanmar passed it down to their temples, and only in the last 50 so years did this system of meditation get popularized and spread through the world. And all around the world, it's quite an amazing thing. There are groups that are so dedicated to this 10 days of bodies. It's effectively a deep surgery that you're doing in your own body through being constantly sensing. It's 17 hours a day of being awake, and of those 17 hours a day, 11 of them are dedicated towards basically seated meditation and body sensing. I could talk all day about this. There's a center in Georgia. They offer these twice a month. There are centers all around the world. If you want to go on a vacation, do one in Bali, do one in India, do one in Europe, they have them. The website is it's just Google, I'll write it down for you. It's VIPASSANA, Vipassana meditation, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was 10 days. The first 3 days were so challenging. It's silence. There's, everything's there for you. They're cooking you the food. There's servers, and the whole thing is free. You don't pay a dime for it until you finish, and you can donate as much as you feel comfortable with. So the entire system, there's hundreds of centers worldwide, and there's not a single person you know me who completed a 10-day Vipassana who won't say it changed their life in a dramatic way. So that's kind of, as a next step, I if you're already there, I highly recommend it. If you're not there, I don't necessarily recommend it. All right? It's a big, big, big commitment, but it's an amazing commitment if you can get through the 10 days. And if you only get through 3 days and like freak out and have to leave, they won't even let you donate. Like they only let people donate if it truly came from them receiving the gift of this system. It's non-denominational. There's no like, oh, you gotta be Buddhist. It actually is encouraged to be religious in any other way because it will help you actually find a deeper meaning and connection to the faith. So if you want to research more about that, here actually let me put this up. You can take your notes back out if you want. This is this one. This is a Matt and I's kind of new brand. Our new business is called Yoga Tali. And this is all of our social media connects and whatnot. So if you want to ever ask me any question, please feel free to write this down, connect through Facebook, etc. I would really love to stay in touch with you all as you journey. And, you know, we post a lot of stuff that's hopefully pretty fascinating. And maybe one day we'll catch you on the other side of the globe in some event. But yeah, Vipassana is not, we don't lead them. It's a system of people that have been doing this for a very long time, and it's a powerful thing. Anybody else? Any questions from the, oh yes, sir.
Have you worked with or had any successful people I know I've heard a lot about mindfulness recently, people dealing with long-term chronic illness or chronic pain that isn't treated through medication, autoimmune dysfunction, even arthritis, joint pain, things like that, about changing your your communication with your body and your environment in order to treat pain without
There are a lot of, again, like I kind of told you that one study, there are many, many, many studies. If you Google mindfulness and autism mindfulness and chronic back pain, a lot of times people will, there's a whole book written by an author named John Sarno called Healing Back Pain, that the entire book is not, it's not about the physical, how to stretch your body and go back, it's about mentally overcoming this restriction, this subconscious block that you put in due to a physical ailment, that you kind of need to rewire that wrong blockage mentally. I mean, this is the whole, I mean, you get into Chinese medicine, you get into Ayurvedic, all these different sort of mind, body, energy, spirituality integrators. You start to see more and more that it is all connected, and you may need to surgically approach that physically through some physical therapy or chiropractic work or acupuncture or whatever it might be. That's helpful, but it's also helpful to approach it mentally as well. So I wouldn't say it's a one-size-fits-all, and I can't say that just by meditating you'll be able to heal it, but it will absolutely factor in your total package of working towards becoming a better whole person. I talk a lot. Hopefully it's fascinating. You guys seem to
No, thank you.
That's good. Danny, you got any questions from the peanut gallery?
I wouldn't want to skew the crowd out either.
All right. Well, I don't want to hold you guys too long. I know you got things to do. You got places to be and people to hug and all that. So thank you all really from the bottom of my heart for being here and being so attentive. And this is, is the dude here who wrote the email about me being all fearless? Bro, you don't know how much like that put me on the spot last night. Because I have a lot of fear, fear is one of those subconscious things that we're wired with, and a lot of us act out of places from fear, and we see it everywhere all the time. Some people, some gurus, capitalize on other people's fear. And so, but like I said, it's impermanent. It changes. Can you approach your fears with equanimity? And so this whole I hadn't done presentations like this in years. I mean, I used to do presentations in my time in UF, and I loved it. It's my favorite class, that professional communication with Lamone. I don't know if he's even still teaching here. Is he? Yeah. So I hadn't done one. I mean, I teach classes all the time. I talk for an hour nonstop. I tell people what to do and move it and how to feel. But this was a lot of pressure and in my mind somehow. Totally bullshit, but still in my mind it was there. So anyway. Thank you for giving me to do a better job today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Will tends to do that to all of us.
What's that?
Will tends to do that to all of us.
Right.
He's very good at that.
Sounds good. It's good to have someone like that in your class.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So and then that's the thing, every one of you probably has, a little thing you bring to the community aspect of your MBA program. And I encourage as much vibration as possible, because the people that you are able to kind of stick with and progress, whether it's, you know, in a different city, a different career, whatever it is, it's neat to always get, as you continue through your future, to stay in touch with folks and see what they're up to. And the more diversity, the better off. And this is the kind of tool that keeps people connected at a higher level, rather than being just distracted and crap all the time. So yeah, the more you can raise your vibration, whatever you want to call it, it's better off. Any questions, Amanda?
No.
Cool. Well, you don't have to rush out.
For
If you
you.
want to chat more, and I mean, I'm happy if you have like a kind of thing you didn't want to share with the room, you want to ask me personally.